Ever since the debut of the Yellow trailer and the song I Burn, RWBY fans and Dragon Ball fans, really, have always compared Yang's semblance to the Super Saiyan transformation made famous in Dragon Ball, most notably the Dragon Ball Z portion. While never officially confirmed by any of the writers from RWBY, since RWBY for the most part is inspired by many things, including fairy tales and many things in popular culture, many have theorized that her semblance more than likely was in some way inspired by Super Saiyan, since Dragon Ball is, of course, a cultural phenomenon. Is this the case? We may never know. But in this episode of what I like to call RWBY In-Depth, we're going to see if we can get to the bottom of it as we look at Yang's burn and Super Saiyan. What's up, everyone? It's Kanan, and welcome to the first episode of RWBY In-Depth. And in this special episode, we're going to be talking about Yang, her semblance, and how, really, in a way, if you think about it, how she is Remnant's equivalent to a Saiyan. Now, I'm not going to focus a whole lot on the Dragon Ball Z portion of this, as this is more of a video on Yang. But before we really can go to Yang and do all the comparisons, we first need to look at the Saiyan race and the Super Saiyan transformation. So let's get down to it. Even though at the beginning of the original Dragon Ball series, we knew that Goku was different, but we didn't know that in actuality he was part of a alien race called the Saiyans. The Saiyans, pretty much, that were officially introduced at the beginning of the Dragon Ball Z portion, are a warrior race. They pretty much live for fighting. It's almost what drives them. It's in their blood. They constantly love the thought of getting into a good battle. And even though Goku is different from Saiyans in that he suffered a head injury, which pretty much made him lose his memory, having no really low inclination that he was an alien. It wasn't until his brother Raditz arrived looking for him where he learned the truth, that his name was actually Kakarot, and that he was part of this bloodthirsty warrior race. And this really answered a lot of questions from like original Dragon Ball. Why Goku loved to fight so much, how he was able to really grow so much stronger than everyone else, even though they were doing the same bit of training. It's like when him and Krillin first trained under Master Roshi. They did the same amount of training, but Goku was always stronger. And this also explains why during a full moon he would transform into a giant ape. And it's funny because as Dragon Ball Z would go on and Goku would start to, just accept that what he was, it explained why he loved to fight so much. And Goku has gotten flack for that over the years because it seems like he puts fighting over common sense. But it's part of his Saiyan instinct, really. He'll never be able to get rid of that. Yes, Goku cares about his friends and family, but at the end of the day, he wants to fight strong enemies and he wants to fight them at his very best. So another thing about Saiyans is that the longer they fight, the stronger they become. And the more damage they take, say, recovering from a near fatal injury, will give them what is called a Zenkai boost. It is pretty much It's kind of like when you work out in real life. As you're lifting weights, you're actually tearing some muscle tissue, and when it recovers and adds another layer, that is how you build muscle definition. So it's kind of like that. After they recover, they pretty much get a new, like, it's pretty much like a level up in RPGs. They get a new level up of power. And throughout most of early Dragon Ball Z, it's thought that, after the fight with Vegeta, that Goku was going to fight Vegeta again, because they kind of teased that a little bit. But then, of course, they introduced Frieza and much more stronger opponents like Zarbon, Dodoria, the Ginyu Force. And then finally, when Goku arrives on planet Namek, that is when we first learn about the Super Saiyan. And at that time, it was just a legend. This Vegeta almost makes it sound like a god-like power, which is kind of funny once you get to Dragon Ball Super and Super Saiyan God and all that. And we didn't know at that time, unless you got on the internet and looked at forums and all this and actually found what a Super Saiyan looked like. If you were like me and didn't want to really get spoiled yet, you just wanted to wait and see, because we didn't know what a Super Saiyan was at the time. We had no idea about the blonde hair and all that. For all we knew, Goku was already a Super Saiyan when he arrived on planet Namek. But then once, Funimation started dubbing the anime and we got further into the series and we finally saw the transformation, we would learn what exactly it entails. Now, this information is from Daizenshu. And we first saw Goku go Super Saiyan in Dragon Ball Z episode 95, manga chapter 317. And we all know what a Super Saiyan looks like. The big spiky golden hair, the bluish green eyes, and the character's power is raised by a great deal. Goku went from being outclassed almost in everything by Frieza to outclassing Frieza by a large amount. It was like pretty much at the point that Goku transformed, Frieza stood no chance no matter how cocky or how much Frieza powered up. Even at 100% power, Frieza never stood a chance. He might have been able to outsmart Goku if he really had not let fear and everything else cloud his judgment, but that is what happened. Now, if you pay attention to the art style, it's very, very funny and how it affects characters like Goku and later Gohan and even Goten for a little bit. And it's the way their eyes were drawn. And normally, the outline around their eyes is not fully drawn. It circles around about 3/4 of the way of the eyeball. When they're in Super Saiyan, their eyes are fully surrounded by an outline, which is the same way the villains were drawn. And Akira Toriyama did this wanting to show the anger and hatred that must be present for a Super Saiyan transformation. And does that sound familiar? We'll get to that in a sec. So yes, when Goku first transformed, it was after watching Frieza potentially kill Piccolo and then flat out murder Krillin right in front of Goku. And we saw Krillin die in original Dragon Ball when he was killed by Tambourine, but Goku didn't witness it actually happen. He just found Krillin's body. And at that time in the series, that was the maddest we had ever seen Goku be. Now, in this part of the series, he actually witnesses it, and we see Goku rage like we never had before, and that is what triggered the Super Saiyan transformation. And it's kind of like that's the basis to become a Super Saiyan is hatred and anger. It's this rage. It was to the point where Goku was having to struggle to not let the power overwhelm him. We saw the same thing with Vegeta when he first became a Super Saiyan, though his motivations were different. It was the anger and hatred he had in himself for not being able to achieve Super Saiyan. And then you have Trunks and Gohan, who were slightly a little different, and it's mostly because they're half breeds. They're half Saiyan, half Earthling. For Trunks, it was the sorrow and probably anger over future Gohan dying at the hands of the androids, and then in Gohan, it was, pretty much his thought of how he was unable to protect his friends and family in the past against villains like Nappa, Vegeta, the Ginyu Force, Frieza, and he finally said, enough's enough, and became a Super Saiyan while him and Goku were training in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, or the Room of Spirit and Time, however you want to name it. So, eventually, as the series went on, Goku found ways to achieve Super Saiyan without really needing the anger and the hatred, and that is what later became full power Super Saiyan and during the Cell arc. And then, like later in Dragon Ball Super, when he achieved Super Saiyan Blue, he was able to finally use Kaioken again with it, and that's because Super Saiyan Blue kind of requires, perfect ki control, whereas original Super Saiyan had all that anger and hatred. So if Goku tried to use Kaioken with it, it stated that it would potentially kill him. So that's a little bit of an overview on Saiyans in general and Super Saiyan. So now let's get to Yang and how really not only her semblance, but how her character herself is probably the closest that Remnant has to a Super Saiyan. Let's move on. Yang has a lot of similarities to Saiyans, and like I said, not just with her semblance. One is her fighting style. Out of all of Team RWBY, she's the only one that is pretty much the brawler. Really, if this was an RPG, she would be the monk class in a way, because she uses her hands and feet. So really, between her, Ruby, Weiss, and Blake, she's kind of the martial artist of the group, and most Saiyans fight with their hands and feet. We've had some exceptions. When Goku was younger, he used the power pole. Gohan, for a short time, used a sword during his early training when Piccolo left him out in the wilderness. And then, of course, you've got future Trunks, who uses a sword. But 9 times out of 10, Saiyans use their hands and feet. So you could kind of say that since Yang is like the martial artist of the group, where she doesn't use a sword or some other kind of weapon like that, that could be somewhat of a similarity. Now, this next point has never been officially confirmed, but a lot of fans have built this theory that because of Yang's semblance, because it's fire-based, she may have, in a way, an accelerated metabolism, which would cause her to need to eat a large amount of food to keep her energy up. Now, this has been drawn in fan art. I believe it was used somewhat in some of the mangas. And what's another thing that Saiyans have? A huge appetite. We have seen throughout the entire series that Goku can gorge an insane amount of food, even an amount of food that should not fit in his stomach. Like, he can just pound it down, and it's literally because it is said that Saiyans require a lot of food to keep on going. And later in the series, where in the Cell arc, we saw that Gohan also develops a larger appetite, because earlier in the series, whether it be in the anime or in the movies, it was shown that he was still shocked at watching his dad eat. But then in the Cell arc, for the first time, we see him share the same kind of appetite that Goku has. And then later in the Buu arc, he still has it. And then the Buu arc itself, we see that Vegeta also eats a large amount of food. So I would not be surprised, out of the main 4 girls, that Yang is probably the one out of all of them that probably has the largest appetite. And that might be because she burns a lot, get it, when she uses her semblance. And now another big similarity with Yang and Saiyans is that the fact that the longer she fights and the more damage she takes, she becomes stronger. Now, with Yang, there's a little bit more limitation because of her aura. Because if her aura breaks, then she's taking all of that damage and not receiving any benefits from it. That's why Tai, in Volume 4, told her that she needed to fight smarter and not rely on her semblance as much as she was, because if she takes too much damage and then throws her shot in and misses, then she's pretty much out of luck at that point. So ever since we've learned more and more about her semblance, the moment that it was realized that the more damage she takes, the stronger she gets, pretty much was it at that time. And I believe it was Volume 2 during their fight against Roman in the mech that he was using. That when Ruby says, the more damage she takes, the more she can give back. I was like, As a Dragon Ball fan, I was like, that's very interesting, because that's what that reminds me of, is a Saiyan. So not only is it her semblance that is kind of relying on a little bit of Saiyan backstory, but it's just her in general, in a way, reminds you of that kind of character. So now let's get to the main event with Burn and Super Saiyan. Let's head on over there. So Burn and Super Saiyan have always been linked since the very beginning, since Yang was introduced. And that's not only because people saw similarities between the two, but her song, I Burn, literally mentions Super Saiyan. And this is not the first time that other forms of media have taken things from Dragon Ball and used Dragon Ball as an inspiration. I believe the creator of Sonic the Hedgehog has admitted that they are a huge Dragon Ball fan, and Super Sonic is basically based off Super Saiyan. And the similarities are pretty much there. For one, Yang's already blonde-headed, so sometimes I wish her hair was a different color. That way the hair change would be a little bit more dynamic in a way. But earlier in the series, around volumes 1 through 3, like, her hair would change, but it would just become a little bit brighter. I like how in more recent volumes, like 6, 7, and 8, her hair literally goes on fire. Like, it literally turns into flames. And it's funny, in RWBY Chibi, whenever she gets mad enough to activate her semblance, her hair literally spikes up. It literally goes up like a Super Saiyan. I don't think they've actually used that in the show, but it would be amazing. Like, maybe she has to get like a whole nother level of angry to achieve that, but it's in Chibi, so probably not. But there's also artwork of it, like her volume 5 artwork, where you have normal Yang, with her glasses, and then you have her using her semblance, and her hair is literally going all over the place. So there might be, there is definitely a relation there. And then, of course, you have the eye color change. Now, Saiyans, of course, when they go Super Saiyan, their eyes become a bluish green color, where with Yang, her eyes become red, which, is to go with the next topic, which is both are based off anger. A Saiyan has to go through a strong feeling of anger and hatred to achieve Super Saiyan, and whenever they transform, they've got to feel that anger, that hatred that Super Saiyan needs for them to achieve it, and that's how they transform. They have to go through that feeling. That's why even later in the series, like around the Android arc, Goku still seemed a bit more edgier when he went Super Saiyan, because he had to feel that anger, that hatred. As the same way with Yang. Tai and many others have kind of joked and said how it's pretty much a temper tantrum, but the similarity is the strongest here, in that she has to go through intense anger to use it. Now, in recent volumes, it's kind of shown that Yang has kind of become more level-headed in how she uses her semblance, so she doesn't exactly have an angry rage when she uses it, but it still has to be there. Like when she used it against Adam, she waited till the right time to use it, but this being the guy that, hurt Blake, hurt her, has haunted her this whole time, she was feeling that bit of anger and rage during that fight. Now, the only time you could really question was she really feeling anger and hatred was during her and Blake's fight against Vine and Elm. But the way Ironwood was doing things and how the Aesops were just following him blindly. She probably was. She probably was a bit fed up at that point. And so she used it. And then, of course, in Volume 8, where she activated her semblance to save Ruby from Neo's sneak attack, of course, she probably felt anger because someone was trying to sneak up on her sister and badly hurt her. So, if you can look past the hair changing and the eye color change, to me, the biggest similarity is the trigger that anger has for both of these transformations. Now, let's head out to the outro. And that's pretty much the similarities between Burn and Super Saiyan. I know it wasn't an entirely long video, but I didn't want to go really way down the rabbit hole on this because it's pretty simple. Anger, the hair changing, the eyes changing, the fact that Yang gets stronger the more damage she takes, it's pretty much enough for me to say, yes, I do think Rooster Teeth, Monty, Miles, and Carrie maybe did take some inspiration for her semblance from Dragon Ball and Super Saiyan, because let's face it, there's a lot of things that Dragon Ball has inspired, because it was pretty much a lot of people's gateway anime. The only other one I can say that was either Sailor Moon or Pokemon. But Dragon Ball was definitely mine, and I've been a fan since about 4th grade, and the moment I saw the Yellow trailer, the moment she used it, I was like, that reminds me of something. And then, of course, when I heard I Burn and heard the Super Saiyan mention, I was like, yeah, she's RWBY's Super Saiyan, pretty much. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please think about subscribing, hitting that notification bell, hitting that like button. Likes help a lot, helps a lot of people find the video and find the channel. And as always, if you want to see more of what me and Jess have to offer, check the description for our Twitter account. I believe Jess's Instagram is in there. Our Etsy store is in there. We do mystery boxes for people, and those are a pretty big hit. We've got a Patreon. We've got a tip jar for if you want to support us that way. You don't have to, though. That's only optional. But yeah, been wanting to do this video for a while. Wanted to wait until Volume 8 was over with before I did it. And if you guys enjoyed it, what other kind of topics would you like to see me cover in this RWBY In-Depth series? Anyway, guys, this is Kanan. Me and Jess love you all very, very much. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. And remember, it's not too far-fetched to think that Dragon Ball doesn't have an influence on everything. Because if you ask me, Yang is Remnant's version of a Super Saiyan. I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.